everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I'm Holly Starbuck, Director of the Office of Postdoctoral Services, and I'd like to welcome you to our panel discussion on careers in university research administration. This workshop is part of the Academic Job Search Series, which is co-sponsored by the Graduate School and Career Center. We have a whole bunch of Our panelists are Jenny Arrington, who is the Scientific Integrity Associate for the Advancing Scientific Integrity Services and Training, or ASSIST office, unless you've renamed it since then.
No, it's still the ASSIST office.
Okay, it's still the ASSIST office.
Yes.
So they're involved with a lot of the responsible conduct of research effort in the School of Medicine. And Christopher Friel, the Associate Vice Provost for Research, who is a former Duke postdoc. And Keith Herka-Owen, the Director of the Office of Research Support. And Jenny Roninga Craven, I hope I didn't butcher the first part, who is the Associate Director of the Duke Office of Research Development, and Jenny is also a former Duke postdoc. So I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and briefly fill us in on their backgrounds, and then we'll start with questions. And some of you submitted questions online. Thank you. We'll start with those, and then move to questions from the audience. And we will make sure to stop, well, whenever you run out of questions, or at 10:30 a.m., whichever comes quicker, and that way you can come down and ask the panelists one-on-one questions if you want to. So now let's start by thanking our panelists for taking time out of their extremely busy schedules to come here today. Thank you so much. So, Jenny A., would you like to start?
Jenny A. I'll start. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you today about a little bit about what I do. Let's see. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina. I've been living in North Carolina my whole life. I love it here. I went to UNC as an undergraduate, and after graduating, I worked in an analytical chemistry lab for some time before I went on to complete my graduate work there with the same PI. Once I left graduate school, I made a divisive shift to get away from animal subjects research to go into human subjects research, and I was really interested in HIV, pediatric and maternal HIV, and so I was working at FHI 360 in science facilitation there for a little while before Duke started this office, which felt like a golden opportunity for me given my interest in research integrity. So, this office has been in place about a year, and I've been here about 6 months.
Hi, I'm Chris. Thank you again for having us here today. I went to a small college out in Asheville, North Carolina, and went on to do my Warren Wilson College, and then came here to the Triangle to do graduate school at UNC in cell biology and anatomy at the time. It's the department I was in. I'm a morphologist by training, got my doctoral degree at UNC, did a short postdoc there, and then came over to Duke, where I was postdoc in molecular biology for a while. I think in looking back, because of this thing here, looking back, I kind of always had some sort of administrative role in every step of my career. I worked for the dean when I was an undergraduate. I had several administrative appointments as I was a graduate student and a postdoc at UNC, and then I kind of continued that trend a little bit when I was a postdoc here. And that kind of had me grow up into an administrative position now where I'm just kind of going through the different ranks. So I look forward to the questions you guys have to ask in those areas.
I am Keith, Director of the Office of Research Support. 2 words, English major. I taught English for the University of Maryland European Division for a couple of years out of Heidelberg, Germany. My wife and I landed here in Durham. I picked up a temporary job at the Fuqua School of Business helping social science research. From there, moved into a Title VI program funded by the Department of Education, running the Center for International Business. Basically, it was me and a faculty member, and we got to do conferences and workshops and working papers and sort of that whole litany of stuff that a center gets to do. And I identified sort of my resources. 2 of them were in the Office of Research Support, and I decided that's where I wanted to go. Took me 7 years to get there, but it's been a good run, and it's been a lot of fun.
So I went to undergrad in Western Kentucky University. I specifically majored in genetics, and that's one of the reasons I chose that university, because they had an undergrad major there in that. and moved out to North Carolina for grad school, again majoring in genetics at NC State before doing 2 postdocs here at Duke. So my area of research was always genetics, but during my postdoc appointments, I kind of explored different areas. So my PhD was in plant genetics, Arabidopsis, population and evolutionary stuff, and I transitioned into some human genetics, looking at the intersection of evolution and neurological disease. And then my final postdoc was in budding yeast, looking at nutritional response and different phenotypes. In that, again, evolutionary genetics still a common theme. So I recognize that I like diverse science, and that's part of what led me to the Office of Research Development, where I am now. There are 5 of us in the office. It's led by the Associate Dean for Research Development, Joanna Downer. I'm the Associate Director, and then there are 3 Research Development Associates. We all work on facilitating the development of complex grants and have a lesser emphasis on individual investigator grant support, and also some workshops and stuff. And so I'm sure we can talk some more about that as the panel goes on. I've been in the office for 7 years now. The first 3 or 4 were as a research development associate, and then the last 3, I think, as associate director.
Great, thank you very much. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your various job duties. I mean, research administration is a huge area, so can you talk about, it's administrative, it's management, it's research. Can you talk about like what a typical day is for you? Want to start again?
Sure. Let's see. So as I said, our office is fairly new. We have various tasks right now, but one of the big things that we're working on is sort of a listening campaign. We're going out and we're visiting different labs, different cores to hear about what particularly their data management needs are. We're also in the midst of implementing a responsible conduct of research training for faculty and staff in the School of Medicine. So I would say that a large part of my day is spent sort of on the administrative side, managing some of the training components, and then setting up meetings and meeting with labs and talking to folks about what they're doing on campus.
Sure, so our office is responsible, broadly speaking, for the research enterprise in the 8 schools that Duke outside of the School of Medicine University. And so, along with Keith's office and about 6 other offices, we are responsible for the administration of Duke's research in schools like engineering, AMS, etc. As the Associate Vice Provost, my job, I like to describe it mainly as fireman, I think. It's responding to issues that we have both at the researcher and faculty level, as well as other administrators and other offices around Duke, and trying to put policies and procedures in place to help kind of remove barriers and move things along in the research area. I manage several staff as well.
ORS is primarily a pre-award office. We do not cover the School of Medicine and School of Nursing. Jenny would work through the Office of Research Administration to get their proposals out the door. A day in our life, I've quit keeping to-do lists because I got tired of just rewriting them the next day. Sort of like Chris was saying, you just deal with what comes at you on any given day. We'll submit something like 1,800 proposals on our side. We'll do $200 million in research expenditures. The other $800 million is on the School of Medicine side. But we negotiate contracts coming in, we negotiate grants coming in, we issue all the subcontracts going out. We'll do 150 some odd subcontracts with collaborators on any given day. So it's usually a pretty fast-paced day. Some of our faculty like to wait until the absolute last minute. I'm sure that doesn't happen in the School of Medicine. So yeah, we're submitting a Moore Foundation electronically yesterday at 4:55 with a 5 o'clock deadline. So, keeps your adrenaline up.
Yeah, we had one where I was yelling by email at the PI to push the button with 3 minutes to spare, and then I fell out of my chair onto the floor. Just a few $1 million on the line. So that happens. Yeah, a day in the life of a research development associate or professional really varies, and that's one of the things I like the most about it. Sometimes we are, I would say about 70% of the time I'm in front of the computer. That might be answering advice, fielding a range of questions. We like to help solve big sticky problems. So a lot of that by email. Reading and editing grant proposals is another big chunk of the time that we spend. We're also facilitating the development of complex grants. So these are program center grants, things that are like 7 times the size of an individual investigator grant, like a NIHR one. So those are really complex, and every different section of that grant has to speak to the other, present a coherent and consistent message. So we're managing the development of that process, making sure all the information is shared among the various team members so that that application can be clear, concise, and compelling. So we develop timelines based on our experience with when you would need to hit certain milestones in order to not be stressed or accomplish all of the things that need to be done in time to put something together that looks really good. We facilitate and manage communications that can be developing agendas for these research teams and sometimes leading those meetings depending on whether the PI wants to do it or wants to have us do it. We're really flexible in filling in the role that is needed on that specific team. And also email communications, making sure information is shared at the right time with the right people to facilitate decision making and speed progress. So we're like a catalyst in the process there. And then we're working with teams in research meetings. I would say at maybe an average of 2 to 3 of those types of meetings a week, where we're working with faculty to hearing them discuss their ideas, helping them shape them into a form that works for the RFA and the required structure of the program, so packaging, advising on grantsmanship. So we get to still work in that conceptual science space, even though we're not responsible for actually conducting the work. We're tossing around ideas and brainstorming, and I have to say it's really rewarding because the area of science changes so much. We might work on a HIV research grant one block of time, which are usually about 3-month block of time that we engage with teams, and then it might shift to birth defects or biochemical pathway or something like that. So I really enjoy the diversity of the science that we work in, and that fits with what you heard me say about my trajectory exploring different areas of science as a postdoc. So I think of that as identifying something that could have been a weakness if I was going for a faculty position, lack of consistent progress in one area, and identifying it as a real interest and value of mine and finding an alternate career where that was valuable.
Great, thank you very much. So it seems like these positions are becoming more common, but at the same time, like, so Jenny, you actually applied for your job, right? There was a job listing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, like, how, if postdocs and graduate students are looking for this kind of position, what can they do to position themselves?
Yes, I applied for the job, but also I accessed the network. So a friend of mine from graduate school, through word of mouth here at Duke, told me about the position, and it was sort of the first of its kind that I had seen that really met the need of getting into research integrity, scientific integrity, and getting concrete and specific about that. And so I would say that in addition to just keeping an eye on HR and what jobs are available, but also really accessing your networks and refining what it is that you're interested in.
Yeah, in my role, I would say that really kind of developing a very broad skill set. I think that probably from the research scientist perspective, you think about broadening the different techniques and different approaches you take to solve problems. And you learn really well of your abilities to write and orally present and interact with collaborators. But I think some other skill sets on how to interact with staff, administration, how the university works, and the different types of, let's say, levels of approval that are needed for projects to move forward, for policy to be created. Those are things that you really don't get any exposure to as a graduate student or postdoc. And so finding those opportunities, though they may be there, aren't necessarily always readily apparent. As a graduate student at UNC, I got involved with our kind of student governance within my department, and I kind of moved on to being student representative on different hiring committees and various committees that kind of affect our department. That kind of laid the groundwork for me as a postdoc when I would look for opportunities not only to say manage our lab's budget or maybe manage the compliance aspect of the lab, then also kind of working with my business manager over in pharmacology to say, are there any opportunities for student representation or postdoc representation at the time on university efforts? And so I was appointed to a couple different steering committees just to provide a postdoc from the basic sciences outlook on different systems. And that eventually led to a program manager position in the dean's office, eventually an assistant dean's position, and I was recruited to my current position.
ORS was established in 1980. Since then, research expenditures at Duke have more than tripled. And you've seen what I would describe as a professionalization of research administration, not only at Duke, but across the U.S. A couple of years ago, Duke established a committee, you'll hear it referred to as RACI, Research Administration Continuous Improvement. Chris is on that committee. I'm on that committee. And they undertook a task of sort of professionalizing the positions in HR. So you can go out now and you can see research administration positions, in the job listings, whereas 10 years ago, you wouldn't know what the job titles were, you wouldn't be able to recognize them. But there are somewhere between 300 and 400 classified research administrators at Duke who are doing plus 80% work in the research administration space. So again, you have professional organizations that have popped up. We'll have the president of the North Carolina chapter of the Society of Research Administration on campus this next year. There's the National Council for University Research Administration in Cura, which is also another great resource. COGR, the Council of Government Relations, concentrates a lot on sort of research issues for all universities. So you've really seen, I think, the professionalization of the category, if you will, in human resources very much recognized and respected.
Research development is a growing field. I was one of the first, I think, at Duke. Joanna Downer started our office on the School of Medicine side and was working as a one-man show for a couple years before hiring me on, and others came in to various schools, I believe, at about that same time. There is a current national organization of research development professionals that I encourage you to all check out if you're interested in this area. They do sometimes offer travel awards for postdocs to come to the meeting, but I think you have to pay dues for membership, and then they might give you something to support your travel. I was in the position of knowing that my funding for my postdoc was maybe dwindling. I think the PI mentioned something to me one time in passing. I don't know how much longer. And it took me about 30 seconds to start monitoring job listings. And so I think it was maybe 4 months or so, and I'm looking and I'm starting to feel nervous because nothing's feeling right. And I always thought I could teach, but it's not my passion. I don't love it. I feel like I'm okay at it. I'm not, it's not my thing. And I felt the same way kind of about bench research, and especially being an evolutionary geneticist. It's not like I had lots of experience that I felt like in terms of bench research, industry was looking for cell culture work or animal models, that sort of thing. So I was biting my nails what's coming next for me. And I saw this on the postdoc listserv, a job opportunity for research development associate, and I saw the roles and requirements, and I thought I can give examples of things that I've done that demonstrate interest and some experience, writing and communicating. I had been ad hoc reviewer for several journals. I was always the person in the lab that people wanted to read and comment on their manuscript. I had even started contract editing on this side. I always loved communicating, writing, and editing, so I was exploring those things independently and then could bring that in and write a compelling cover letter and demonstrate some specific skills, or at least first steps towards showing this is real for me. I have a tangible interest in this area.
Great. I know you got your job for the postdoc listserv.
Yeah.
Okay.
Holly helped me negotiate my salary too. At least gave advice on it.
Ooh, speaking of salary, that's always a fun question. Could you give a ballpark of like what salary might be expected for somebody who's starting out in these kinds of positions?
So I can address the racy banding. They came up with 7 positions, 1 bi-weekly and then 6 monthly positions. 3 of them were central positions like the ORS positions, and then 3 of them were out in the departments or in the units. And if you just think of them as 1, 2, and 3 going up the ladder, a level 81 is going to be somewhere between $50,000 and $84,000. Level 82, 54 to 94, and then a level 3 is somewhere between 64 and 124.
Doesn't sound like a bad gig.
Not a bad gig.
If you've taken any classes on negotiation, sometimes they'll tell you that it's very difficult if you've been with a company for a long period of time to be able to negotiate your salary, since your salary history is always known within that company. I kind of fall into that range. But I'd say for a project manager, say in an administrative sense where you're kind of learning to do those types of things, probably salaries within the 60s to 70s is probably the expected area to start off when you're kind of tiptoeing into administration. Coming from a scientific background.
Yeah, I would say similar for a research associate or a scientific integrity associate starting out.
Our office might start more around 50 for someone coming out of a postdoc, and expect a steep learning curve, even if you have experience with a diverse range of science. Clinical research was new to me, although I was very comfortable in a range of basic things. And in terms of grantsmanship, you may have seen or helped your PI work on an R grant or even a handful of them. But in order to provide leadership to complex grants, you first have to have competency and knowledge of unique problems with that along the way. And it takes a couple of years of hands-on work to get to that level.
Any questions from the audience at this point? Yes.
So a few of you mentioned that you did a traditional postdoc after grad school before moving into this position. Did you think, is that typical? Is that necessary? I know now there's starting, people are starting to make postdocs that are like a little more non-traditional, and there are some administrative postdocs, but did you think the traditional one helped you to get where you are, or it was just a step that you took at the time?
Well, I certainly did a postdoc because I thought I was going to eventually end up being a PI. Though I think I learned early on that necessarily wasn't what I wanted to do. I just was kind of on that track.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we got. It really wasn't until later in my second postdoc here at Duke that I started to realize, I've kind of collected these tools of how to work in an administrative world throughout my entire training. Perhaps I should look at those types of opportunities. And again, I'd say most of the opportunities that at least I've seen at schools like Duke and our peers, these positions are held by faculty members. And so that's kind of already kind of a knock against somebody coming out of a postdoc. But more and more you're seeing these positions that are being opened up to non-faculty because there's really value to not being a faculty member in these positions. And so I think it was probably maybe 3 years into my postdoc here at Duke that I said, maybe I'll start looking for opportunities. And again, it was, like I mentioned before, it was really kind of going out within my department, first within my lab, manage the budget, because at the same time it was around 2008 when everything was kind of going to hell. And so we really needed somebody to be doing that, and nobody was. And so picking up those skills, working with the business office, kind of building a rapport with them to show that I kind of understood the language that they spoke. It was kind of building up that skill set that I think made me attractive for other positions coming
I would say for me, it was the same thing. I started on that path because I was thinking initially that I would want to be PI. But the various labs I worked in all had really different research culture. And so that I feel like is really critical knowledge for engaging with different types of teams that we work with in my current role. So I'm glad that I had those experiences. Was it necessary? No, but valuable.
And I think you had a question?
Yes. Hi, good morning. I came in a little late, sorry, but I don't know. I'm trying to understand everyone's titles and kind of descriptions. Kind of sound like, the particular Jenny, your job title is kind of like, sounds like it's very similar to an industry position like project management or manufacturing scientist. Would you agree with that, or kind of like what would be like an analogous position in industry?
They do have sort of project managers and maybe someone who has industry experience more. I know RTI, for example, in particular, has people doing roles similar to what I do. I don't remember their exact title. It might even be proposal specialists and things. But we bridge both worlds, the project management and the grants development world. Our office doesn't do budget development for grants, but we do help with the conceptual development. Scientific editing is where we spend a big chunk of day-to-day time. And yeah, in addition to that, the sort of timeline project management aspect.
I can say at FHI, in science facilitation, we were research associates or prevention trial specialists as sort of job titles or roles. And that during that time, I would say that we worked a lot. So the funding piece wasn't really an issue. We already had the funding, so we would work on protocol development and managing these large clinical trials teams and really keeping that machine oiled and keeping all the different stakeholders communicating in a way that sounds like it's different than what you're working on, but sort of on the implementation side. That's what science facilitation was at FHI. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Danny, you had a question?
So you guys explained how you got to where you are. What are you constantly doing to look for your next step in your career that you would suggest us
So is there career progression for these positions?
Basket weaving.
to do?
Basket weaving.
Yeah, I thought it would be nice to be an alpaca farmer in Peru. So for our field area, there's research development associate, then there are mid-level positions like me, associate director. So I've added to my initial responsibilities, I'm a departmental liaison, so the school has many departments. I have as part of my job to meet with them and discuss their needs when they have interest in enhanced research development support, but need advice about how to go about it strategically. What could we do for them? What might they build locally to enhance capacity beyond what we can provide at the school level? So I have those conversations, and also more mentoring support for others in the office. And then there's an office director, in this case it's associate dean, and that's pretty much highest level that you can go. So I'm pretty happy with my current role. I'm challenged regularly, which is the bar that I have. I don't want to get bored with my job doing the same thing over and over. That's what would lead me to want career progression. But I have a comfortable salary. I enjoy the range of jobs that I have. I love working with faculty. The science changes. It's a good balance of leadership and support. So I'm happy sitting still for a while.
Well, for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier, a lot of the positions, specifically the line that I'm in, are held by faculty. And so in just the traditional next step, at Duke at least, there probably isn't a position for me in the management center level, but for some of the same reasons you just mentioned, I'm very fulfilled with my job. It's different every day, and there's no shortage of new areas to move into, and so at least for the time being, I'm pretty pleased.
I would ask, I kind of asked myself the same question, because what I feel like our position is so new, there's not really a trajectory or a path forward. That's not to say that I don't believe there is one. I do think there is one, and I think a lot of what's already been said, that there's going to be some skill building and path formation, sort of carving that out to see where it goes. I mean, I'm just curious to see where this office goes and what kind of services we can actually provide. It'd be interesting to see.
I would add one thought to this too. I know when I was nervous about taking the leap away from research into an administrative role, and what if I didn't like it? And I had two things that made me comfortable taking the leap. One, I felt very good about the person that I was going to be working with, so my supervisor. And the other was I recognized that in a role like this, I'm going to be meeting and networking with faculty across the School of Medicine, hopefully developing positive relationships with them, and that if this wasn't the right fit for me, then I would have a network to go to look at for next opportunities. I think that was a valuable way of thinking about it. It certainly worked well for me.
No, I'd say that was again, I'm saying the same thing over again. It was definitely something that I think I picked up as a postdoc as I inserted myself into different administrative opportunities, and I got to learn people throughout campus in different areas that I would never have exposure to just at the bench.
Yeah, the variety of life is really great, and there's always room for continuous improvement in various areas. So there are people developing systems to help with research administration. You get to serve on those committees and help build out these systems that's going to help people do their jobs better. So there's a sort of this constant flow of new activity that keeps you on your toes.
And you're in a helping job. A lot of us, I think, are, so that it, again, builds positive relationships when you help make things happen for people, and new opportunities spin off from those.
Mostly helping.
Mostly, yeah, well, Chris, you.
You have to be service oriented.
And patient. Yes. And perhaps a related question is, what would you say the job security is for these kinds of positions?
You serve at the pleasure of the person above you, at least in an administrative role. And so there's always the chance when, in my line, a new provost, a new vice provost, even a new executive vice provost comes in, that they can decide that they want to change direction. And so there's always that. But I think for what we've been talking about is you kind of develop a reputation for producing good work, as well as have your skill set varied. And you've made the relationships that you'll always find a place to be. Good people are needed everywhere all the time.
Yeah, I would add to that, when one research center disappears, another one is born. So a position may not necessarily be etched in stone, but the positions are. Duke as a research entity is not going away anytime soon. So there are positions out there in a variety of roles. And again, I think that the odd thing from my perspective in the central office is how many other offices research touches. So you're dealing with issues in procurement, you're dealing with issues in facilities and equipment, you're dealing with all these sorts of other export controls, international. That there are just a lot of different ways you can grow and explore.
Our services are extremely high in demand and exceed our capacity to fill them. And our office is on hard money, so it's not grant funded. We don't, have a portion of our salary covered if the grant we worked on gets funded. So that's something to look out for. So I feel fairly secure in our job. Again, we serve at the pleasure of the dean. Our office is a service provided by the dean, which recently transitioned, and we're still up and going. So I feel like it's a good direction and a growing field in general.
Do you think there would be room for someone to enter into a research administration career if they had a lot of experience in research but didn't necessarily have a PhD?
No, I think so. I mean, I think that there are different offices that have either program management that they're looking for, or even assistant directors or associate director positions, that the skill set that you learn, even just through your education, short of PhD, would be valuable.
I mean, I was telling a story earlier on that with a recent undergraduate who is now managing a lab. It's his first job after getting his degree. And he basically said he was surprised to learn that there were more positions at a university than just students and professors. Right? That suddenly there's this whole infrastructure that's opened up underneath, to what he was perceiving, and sort of having that understanding of how the university works, how it operates, and where you can fit in, I think would make you a very attractive person, because you understand the research, right? You understand the research role in a way that, I as a non-scientist probably don't.
And you don't need a PhD to do that, right? I mean, if you've had that background, to be able to kind of translate between the two worlds is important.
Dave, you had a question, and then Danny, and then you had another question? Right? Okay, Dave, then Danny, then.
So how does your office measure success? Or put another way, how are you evaluated in the work that you do?
Shall I start with that? Every day at 1 o'clock, we enter the hot zone. In the hot zone, we run a queue. We look at all the proposals that are due today at 1. And I run up and down the hall and find out why we haven't moved these to submitted. Why have they not gone in yet? What is the problem? What is the holdup? I'm evaluated by the number of proposals I drop, meaning I missed 5 o'clock, and the expectation is that number is 0. Right? The proposals are going out the door. So my success rate is 100%, and that's what I'm held to. So I'm back to the adrenaline rush, the end of the day push to get all of these things out the door. To the timeliness, we do timely reports on subcontracts. If we get an award and it's got a subcontract on it, it came in January 1, how long did it take me to get the subcontract out to UNC? How long did it take UNC to get the subcontract back to me? Everybody's working on these short time frames where the PI got the grant. It started on January 1. Why didn't UNC get cranked up until February 22nd? Those are the things that we're judged by. It's getting that quality of work out in a timely manner and not dropping any balls.
Yeah, we track number of proposals we work on, number of dollars coming in from proposals we've worked on, but the biggest indicator of success is faculty satisfaction. And I think we're really blessed to work in a place that holds that as the primary standard. So if the faculty feel like we're helping and they feel like they were able to submit a complex grant that maybe they would have been deterred from because of the administrative burden, then that's how we're adding value.
Yeah, I'd say at its base, that's what it comes down to for our office as well. We are there to support faculty and the researchers in the campus side. And when they're unhappy with certain services or directions that the university is going, and we hear about it and adjust accordingly. Maybe more directly to my position, we have benchmarks and things that we pass through on different projects that leadership demands, and so as long as we meet those, and I kind of strive to make my bosses life a little bit easier, or at least play the first filter.
I would just echo what's already been said. I think we're in the first year of having full staff in our office, so we're in the midst of still sorting some of that out.
Okay, and Danny, you were next, right?
So sorry for asking this probably over and over again, but do you guys regret not going the faculty route? I know you mentioned you were you mentioned you were thinking about it, but do you guys regret it, or can you point out like what are the cons and pros of being in faculty or not being in faculty?
Maybe I'll even take a step back. Are there days that I wish I was still a postdoc? Do I not realize at the time that, postdocs seemed like the worst thing in the world, but kind of looking back, all of the freedom that was actually there when I was a postdoc is missed. I think, I'm very happy with the choices, or I should say, not even, some of them were just choices, it's just luck of the draw. I'm very happy where I am now. I think that there are aspects of my job that would be easier if I were a faculty member, because faculty tend to interact with faculty differently than they interact with staff. It does help to have a doctorate in that point, but I'm still a faculty member, if that, you know what I'm saying. I think I knew probably about year 3 of my postdoc that I just didn't have the drive. I knew I could, and I knew I could be successful somewhere. I just didn't know if I really had the passion to do it. I wasn't the ideas person in the lab. I kind of, I got things done, made things look pretty, but I wasn't the idea generating individual. I think as a PI, you really do. And so luckily getting things done works really well in administration. So that's my background.
I would say I was kind of the opposite. I was too many ideas. I was the ideas person, and I didn't enjoy committing myself to the day-to-day routine of doing stuff. I feel like my current role allows me to focus on or emphasize the parts of an academic career that I enjoyed the most, while not having to do the parts that were just parts of it. So communications, working with teams, thinking about science conceptually, writing and editing. A lot of people cannot believe, like, you wanted to write grants. Yeah, I love that stuff. My favorite thing was reading all the papers and writing a review article or a manuscript. Like, I just liked that stuff. And so that is the emphasis in my current job. So no regrets. Although I do not have improved work-life balance. I had hoped that I would. Work-life balance is on par with faculty members. Constant deadlines, lots of nights and weekends.
Yeah, that was actually one of our questions. Segue into that. How's the work-life balance? So not good, according to Jenny.
Unbalanced.
I don't know, everybody remember their freshman 101 class? Remember the poor instructor who had 75 essays to grade over the weekend? My balance is pretty good.
I mean, I don't really have much to add that other than I think when you reach a certain level, expectations kind of are all around you for timing and response time. And again, there are some priorities that have to shift on the fly, and so you're pretty much on call.
I don't want to forget about your question.
This is a question about the types of grants that you work on. I know you mentioned like complex grants and like grants for various research groups. Do you also work on training grants like the T32s and stuff like that, or is it more just?
Yeah, no, we're research grant focused. The primary charge is the complex ones. We work with 2 faculty per department nominated by their chair on individual investigator grants. These might be faculty who everyone's like, they have this great idea and we can't understand why they're not getting funded. So will you work with them and see if there's something in the presentation that can be improved? And workshops on grantsmanship, and in affiliation with some of the Office for Faculty offerings like the Path to Independence and K-Club programs that they do. Joanna Downer leads those.
Yes.
Are there any internship opportunities in your offices?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Is there any internship opportunities in your offices?
Nothing formal. We've actually had conversations in the past on how to develop something. Probably, I think I fell down on some of those requirements. I would say at least there's no formal structure. Again, I think that there are opportunities, at least I found opportunities at the department level even for things that are kind of in-house within your department, that when it comes to faculty hiring committees or something like that, should try to start to get your foot in the door on some of those things. But
Scott Gibson's fellowship program.
that's true, the School of Medicine has their fellowship program.
Yeah, they're not interested in PhDs.
Right.
What about Docker's program?
I don't know about that. I can say that we've finally gotten buy-in and commitment for developing one, so give us a little time. We're putting something together. But at this point in time, I've been told it's thumbs up, it's a go. We just have to do it.
And are you a graduate student or a postdoc?
I'm a postdoc.
Yes.
I hope this isn't too repetitive, just sort of echo a previous question, but was it a struggle, or were you excited about the idea of sort of stepping back from being the lead on your own research to sort of supporting other people's research, or sort of being the doer of the research, the science portion, to sort of behind the scenes work? How does that transition?
That's a good question. So I think the way that I look at it, and at least the way I justify it with myself, is that I actually, as a researcher at the bench, my singular work could impact a small number of, I was a basic scientist, so a small number of small number of individuals on the next path on my chain of research, right? So I was working on basic science, so eventually we'd get into an animal model, and eventually it would be clinical research. That was kind of the pathway of me having an impact. The way I look at my job now is I try to remove barriers to research for lots of people. And in that way, I feel like that I'm kind of contributing to a broad body of research and trying to facilitate their research. And I think that I really enjoy that. That's where I kind of get my positive feedback. I will say that there is a creativity that's lost, though. One thing that I think that if I miss being at the bench is that I was pretty much master of my domain. In any direction I wanted to go in, or anything I could dream up, that was how I proceeded in research. The creativity in an administrative role, at least at my level, is more solving problems with creativity, but that doesn't always have the same kick as it.
Other questions? Sure. All right, well, at this point, we can move to our networking part of the program. If you'd like to come down and ask the panelists your individual questions that are too terrifying to ask. And have another bagel and some coffee.